It's March 29th, 2026. I'm Sophia Tupolev, and this is your TV10 Weekend Edition. Everyone loves a good comeback story. While the horrors persist, so does the narrative of the post-war boom. The day after in Israel sounds amazing. It's seductive in its simplicity. Geopolitical friction settles, confidence returns, and a wall of global capital, including from the Gulf, floods into our battle-tested, tech-rich economy. As we've been covering, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has been explicit in projecting this day after reality. And of course, Israeli defense, tech, and cyber are and will remain attractive to pragmatic capital, hunting high beta yield. We all know that. But as new normalization accords are hopefully signed and new sources of capital pounce on Israel, in theory, as we all hope, does our ecosystem, I have to ask, does our ecosystem have the kinetic capacity to actually absorb a recovery boom? I mean, institutionally. Let's look at this for a second because the nation's operating system is severely bottlenecked today across multiple fronts, which we explore in this weekend edition, which you can get if you subscribe on Substack. If the economy cannot efficiently clear financial transactions, physically manufacture goods, or project institutional stability, this promised renaissance will not merely be delayed. It will arrive late to the most consequential geopolitical opening the region has seen in a generation. Headlines frequently ignore the friction in deploying capital to Israel. We can start with that. That's the first bottleneck on my list, the banking sector, a highly concentrated oligopoly that prioritizes absolute stability over capital velocity. I spoke with attorney Anna Moshe, chair of the Israeli Emerging Companies and Venture Capital Practice Group at Pearl Cohen, one of Israel's leading law firms. I asked Anna how she sees a post-war recovery and what structural barriers still exist in the way. Let's hear what she had to say.
The only things that I am worried about, the only issues that I'm worried about are actually not the will to cooperate or to actually trade with Israel, but more the issues that are the everyday issues that we see today. For example, the banking system, again. We see that the banking system has a zero tolerance for any kind of risk or will to try and see how to make the deals happen. So the first time or the second time that there's a transaction with Saudi Arabia or another country that will, God willing, sign an agreement with us, I am sure that there will be issues. And I'm not talking about trading arms or something like that. I'm talking about starting the commercial relationship, because I am sure and I know already that there are contacts, there are ties, and people themselves, the companies, they do want to cooperate and they do want to trade. The minute it will get to the financial system, to the banks, you will see that again, there will be blocks because they will start asking questions that were never asked. And instead of looking for solutions, like today, they will just block the funds or block the transactions and make Israeli companies work outside of Israel. This is the same issue of the regulator not trying to find solution, but protecting the banks in a very blanket kind of way without interfering and giving professional advice and professional solutions. For example, if a bank in the United States, which actually, applies sanctions on other countries, if a bank is not sure whether or not it can receive any kind of funds from a transaction, from a client, an immigrant, if it's not sure, it turns to the Treasury, which is the state, and the Treasury, having the tools, information, and professional people, are looking for a solution, and usually they answer very quickly, they take the responsibility, but they also provide solutions. They do not do what we do here in Israel, where the regulator says, you find the solution and you're responsible. we're not interfering, and we have no real knowledge about sanctions, transfers that are new, and all those things. You can look at the way Israeli banks and the Israeli regulator handled the whole issue of crypto. They would not let Israelis trade crypto. The whole world was trading crypto already, but Israelis could not do it because the regulator would not agree to provide actual regulations so that the commercial banks could know what you can do and what you cannot. It's the same with transfers with under sanctions that do not apply directly in Israel. It's the same with any kind of transaction that is not a standard symbol transaction. So if you're asking me what is going to happen, I'm telling you that if we do not create an ecosystem which allows the banks to receive the funds and to have actual commercialization of any kind of new relationship, we will have a big problem getting funds into Israel. And like always, the Jewish people find a way to work around. So the state of Israel will not benefit, at least at first, from this change.
So the Abraham Accords have generated enormous political capital and genuine diplomatic momentum. But when new peace accords are signed with Gulf countries, the established way of doing things in the Israeli banking system doesn't change. This is the infrastructure that any new Gulf capital will have to deal with. And signing ceremonies are beautiful and they make the headlines, they look so nice, but they do not rewrite bank compliance manuals. In fact, the Israeli banks write their own compliance manuals, and there's very little regulatory oversight. So when new Saudi institutional money eventually moves towards Israeli accounts, it will meet the same old system. No regulatory obligation to accept incoming wire transfers, no standardized review of new accounts, no appeals mechanism, and every institutional incentive to refuse first and ask no questions later. So the ministers will surely, and I'm so optimistic about this, the ministers will be photographed in Riyadh, all over the region. But the wire transfers, those first institutional checks that try to come in to invest in Israeli funds and Israeli companies and to do deals here, those wire transfers will die in a compliance queue in Tel Aviv banks. In this weekend edition, available to subscribers on Substack, we cover this and other topics that will affect the ability of Israel to truly experience a post-war boom. And as we get ready to celebrate Passover in Israel and in the diaspora, may we merit to see an enduring peace in our land, and may we soon experience an Israel that can handle and can absorb the post-war boom institutionally, and that may we see many generations of abundance to come in Israel, the diaspora, and with our allies abroad.